If you open the Old Testament prophetic books, you immediately collide with a sharp dividing line in biblical scholarship, the phenomenon of predictive foresight. For traditional scholars, genuine predictive prophecy serves as an apologetic revelation. It operates as a proof of divine origin, demonstrating that a human author was given access to outcomes they could not possibly know. Mainstream critical scholarship processes the text differently. In this framework, highly specific, long-range predictions are considered historically impossible. Instead, these texts are read as examples of historical retrojection. To trace this on a timeline, historical retrojection means these documents were written long after the events occurred, but authors styled the text to look like ancient prophecy. This debate reaches its highest intensity in two contested texts, Isaiah and Daniel. Both books contain granular, perfectly accurate descriptions of empires rising and falling, and specific political figures governing, centuries after their traditional authors lived. Determining when these texts were actually written is the ultimate stress test for biblical hermeneutics. To understand why modern scholars confidently redate these documents, we have to isolate the anomalies in the text itself. If these texts are authentic, they stand as formidable evidence of divine revelation. If they are late-dated, their nature shifts into contemporary political commentary written after the fact. This is a continuous Hebrew scroll. For centuries, the book of Isaiah was read exactly like this, as a single unified document authored by one man. The historical setting for the first half of the book is firmly rooted in the 8th century BC, tracking the prophet's ministry through the reigns of King Ahaz and King Hezekiah. But read past chapter 39, and the text begins to fracture. Moving into chapters 40 through 66, the perspective abruptly shifts. The author writes as if the Babylonian captivity has already taken place. That captivity happened roughly 150 years after the historical Isaiah walked the streets of Jerusalem. The text goes even further, explicitly naming the Persian ruler Cyrus, declaring him the figure who will eventually free Israel from Babylon. For a mainstream historian, anticipating the rise of the Persian of the Paranamp and Anning-Ipskecher kings centuries in advance violates the laws of historical causality. The resulting deduction is that these final 26 chapters were written by an anonymous author, Deutero-Isaiah, living concurrently with Cyrus and observing his reign. By removing the possibility of predictive foresight, the critical method splits the book in two. What was traditionally read as a long-range promise becomes a localized observation of current events. The same tension drives the debate over the book of Daniel. The opening chapters record broad visions, that the latter half narrows into exacting descriptions of the Hellenistic era, triggered by Alexander the Great. When Alexander's empire fractured, it was divided among his generals, setting off a cascade of territorial conflicts. Daniel's prophecies map perfectly to the brutal, multi-generational wars over the Levant between the Seleucid dynasty in the north and the Ptolemies in the south. The text reaches a highly specific climax. It details a northern ruler who unleashes a wave of persecution against the Jewish people and violently desecrates the temple. Historically, these events are a flawless match for the reign of Antiochus Epiphanes in the 160s BC. This presents a chronological problem. Daniel is traditionally dated to Babylon before 500 BC. How could that author possess an exact roadmap of Hellenistic warfare that would not play out for another 300 years? Mainstream academia resolves this by concluding the author was not a 6th century prophet. They argue the book was produced by an anonymous writer living around 164 BC, writing directly during the Maccabean revolt. The sheer density of historical data in Daniel leaves no middle ground. The text is either a spectacular predictive revelation or a pseudepigraphical forgery. Defending the traditional dates of these complex books requires a reader to evaluate the ancient prophets entirely on their own terms. You cannot read an ancient oracle the same way you read a historical narrative. Interpreters rely on three specific mechanics: prophetic time perspective, conditionality, and double reference. Prophetic time perspective collapses chronological distance. It makes a near-term judgment and a distant event appear to happen simultaneously from the vantage point of the prophet. Interpreters also look for conditionality, warnings of judgment that will only trigger if a nation fails to repent. but the most crucial tool is double reference. This operates on the principle that a prophet can use a single set of words to simultaneously describe a local crisis and a distant eschatological fulfillment. Accepting these mechanics is an absolute prerequisite. Without them, the apologetic value of the text caves to the critical late dating theory. These hermeneutical decisions act as the engine for systematic theology. They establish the structural framework for how a reader understands the entire biblical storyline. Consider the kingdom prophecies found throughout the Old Testament, such as the closing verses of the book of Obadiah. When the prophets promise a restored kingdom, a critical eschatological question emerges. Are they referring to a future national, ethnic Israel, or are they speaking figuratively? One major interpretive approach spiritualizes these promises. This leads directly to supersessionism, the view that the New Testament church completely replaces Israel as the people of God, leaving no future promises for the ethnic nation. The contrasting approach demands a literal reading, relying heavily on the principle of double reference. This literal track concludes that while the church exists now, ancient prophecies still require a future reconstitution of the nation of Israel. These two dominant eschatological schools, amillennialism and premillennialism, do not emerge in a vacuum. They are the direct result of how a reader processes prophetic time. Every modern debate over the end times traces back to these specific interpretive choices regarding the ancient prophets. Resolving the authorship and dating of these texts does more than settle a history debate. It dictates whether the biblical narrative concludes with a spiritual metaphor or a literal fulfillment.